Hello, Sitecore community. First of all, a very happy new year to all of you. In today's episode, we are going to have Daivagna Nanavati discussing specifically about his experience on XM Cloud certification for all of us. He appeared for XM Cloud certification in the last week of December, I think 22nd, I believe, and yeah, he's going to share his experience and he's going to share his learnings. I think that will help us all out in appearing for the XM Cloud certification. At the same time, what we'll also do is we'll be sharing a few resources available from the community as blogs and other videos in the description of this video, so that you can even go through that and understand a little bit more on how XM Cloud certification exam is, its format, and the nitty-gritties of it. Thank you. So let's jump into the episode right away. Hello everyone, a very happy new year to you. Today we have Daivagna with us, and the main agenda of today is to discuss his experience on XM Cloud certification that he did in the last week of December, I believe.
Yeah. 22nd December.
22nd December. All right. So yeah, Daivagna, let's just jump into it. I've been hearing, a number of things when we look at XM Cloud certification. I myself am preparing for it, but this podcast is mainly to share knowledge with the community about how the exam is, what it is, and about a notion that the exam is tough. People are worried or nervous about it, and let's just break the ice and look at that perspective first, and then we can deep dive into the things.
Sure. So you're actually right. It's not the nervousness around the community, but I think the toughness of the exam. Especially, when I was appearing, right. I was also into the mind frame that how different it is from the previous exam, and
right.
What if I don't hands-on, what will happen? And then of course there are good community blogs and stuff out there who already appeared for the exam, right? So those are helpful as well. But coming to your question of the difficulty, it's like case to case. I would say it is right in certain extent, because they have done a really good job making sure that when you appear for the exam, you are well versed with the XM Cloud skill set that you should possess, right? So it's not only the documentation that is suffice, because it's 80% of the passing, right? Like any other exam. But here, what makes it tough is because there are a lot of scenario-based questions. There are a lot of questions which are, even in the document it is there, but they are tweaked in such a way that you will need to apply your some skill set or diligence to answer them. Then there are multiple choices, right? So you have to choose a right kind of options to be able to make sure that either should I select 3, should I select 2, right? That confusion.
There are like kind of a trick question which you can only know by experience.
Correct. And the other thing is, not only questions are well versed, but the options. So if I talk about my personal experience, I was more confused with the options, even if I have some little experience of XM Cloud hands-on. But I was because I had to mark all the frankly speaking, my 15%, like 15 questions were in the review. So that was
out of
50, yeah.
Wow.
So that was worrying me a bit.
Yeah.
But then that's what it is. So just for the knowledge of the community, that it's not only questions, but I think options are also in a such a way that if you have well prepared, then you'll be able to answer confidently. Yep.
All right. Well, I think when you are mentioning this about XM Cloud examination, I remember, based on my experience of Content Hub Developer Certification exam, I noticed during that time as well, kind of a same, I would say, vibe was there in the community. I had also reached out to a few people who had got certified on Content Hub, and overall on Slack group I also had some discussions around it. And one thing that I noticed was, yes, the exam questions and the answers or the options were really nice, but if you have good hands on the subject matter, I think that will be able to clarify a lot of things for you, because the options are such that when you look at the question, when you look at the answers in one go, I think it looks like A also could be the answer,
Correct.
B also could be the answer.
Exactly.
But then when you really read it in detail and really try to clarify it in your mind and consider that particular concept from working perspective,
Correct.
I think it answers it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So reading the question like between the lines is a key, as well as the option, as you mentioned. There are very thin line between all the questions between right and wrong. A looks right, B looks right, but then when you read it carefully, then you realize that, okay, now this is my choice, and you have to go with your best choice, because not to mention is that it's a 50 questions for 100 minutes. So
Yeah.
there are a couple of questions which are like scenario based, which is descriptive. So like 4 or 5 lines of questions. So when you read them, and then you kind of with the calm mind, read those options, then
Right.
you realize that your time is ticking. And if you get into like 4 or 5 questions like that, then that nervousness kicks in. And then when you look at the watch or the ticker, then you see that. So that's why that nervousness and toughness of the exam that you are talking about. Otherwise, if you are prepared, and there is nothing hard for it. Yep.
Interestingly, on a human psychology thing, I think even during our usual exams, when we used to have in colleges and schools, if the first 3 questions are tough, we will have a different mindset altogether.
So
And
you are actually putting me on the spot, because it's my personal experience when I appeared for the exam. I wish nobody goes through that, but my first, my second, my third, my fourth, and my 7th questions on the row were put into the review mode by me.
oh,
So that's where I felt that, okay, I need to take some time at the last to review them and then correct them. But yeah, it's just maybe the exam is, the nature of the exam is like that.
yeah. All right. Well, let's then let's try jumping into the structure
Sure.
of the examination for Exam Cloud. Would you like to go through the different like high level parameters, and then if required we can jump into the details of those?
Sure. So there are already good blogs by community members, which I also personally referred. They have described the exam structure and the nature of the exam and how and what's of the exam very well. Some videos are out there. You can refer to that. But personally, if I would like to say, it's 100 minutes for 50 questions. It's a typical Sitecore exam format, so you will not find anything different in the interface or the kind of user interface. You can review your answers later on. And the most important thing I would say is, as I said, competency. So the preparation material, and I would like to mention is that there is some confusion out there in the community about the preparation document, because there is an XM Cloud developer exam learning documentation out there.
Yeah.
And then there is other one called headless developer documentation out
So
there.
are you talking about the learning path available in the the content cloud section of the learning portal?
Yeah, exactly. So if you go there, there is this headless developer, and we are going to put the links in the video so that community can refer to them. So my advice is to go through that, because some of the questions are from there. So if you don't have gone, if you haven't gone through them, then you might feel that it's difficult, or maybe out of syllabus, that you don't know something even if you have hands-on. So we'll put those materials out there, but there are 8 competencies, right? Starting from the first is XM Cloud architecture. So that means how the content structure is placed, what are the terminologies of XM Cloud, pages, content component builder, right? Site collections. Then it's a deploy app. So how you typically deploy your app to the XM Cloud. right? So DevOps portion of the XM Cloud, which they have taken care. So that's the second competency. So it covers a lot of aspect competency. This DevOps competency is like how you create the deployment, how to see the logs, right, and everything around that. And of course, what are the things happen behind the scene when deployment happens? All those things you should be knowing. And the third one is typically is rendering and layout. So how you typically create the JSON rendering, what's the layout, placeholders, you should be well versed with the placeholders, how to put the things on placeholder, how to restrict them to a certain extent and stuff like those. Fourth one is Sitecore serialization. So it's a typical Sitecore serialization, but here there is a cloud API as well. So to push and pull from the cloud instance to your local instance. So I would suggest to get familiarized with those in detail, because in normal day-to-day life we only push, pull, do a status check or validate. But there are some detailed question as well for the serialization. So make sure that you are well versed with that. Then there is a API and webhooks, right? So admin API is there, Sitecore authoring API is there. So there are questions about APIs, authoring APIs, webhooks. Then there is data modeling. So data modeling is our classical Sitecore templating.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So because you are Sitecore background, I don't think so you will face any difficulties there, but it's good to prepare, because 80% passing is like any question can decide your passing and failure, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be well versed with those. And the last but not the least is the security. Especially personally, I face little difficulty in answering security related questions, because they were so detailed that you have to go through everything, and you should have your base clear to be able to answer them. So these are the 8 competencies. And documentation wise, Sitecore developer exam documentation has a very detailed documentation out there. Everything is there. The only thing is, when you click on those separate links, it takes you to a documentation. But make sure that you don't only read that document, but there are sub documents available.
There are links.
So exactly.
So
make sure to refer to them. Then you'll not feel that something is out of syllabus.
Correct. So now let's break this down, I think, into 3 categories, the way I feel. I mean, of course, there are, I think, 10 or 12 competencies involved to get this 100% of...
8 competencies.
Okay, 8 competencies which are involved. I think let's break them down into 3 per se. One being Sitecore basics, right? So templating, layouts, renderings, stuff like that. Whether XM Cloud or not, those basics are for you to do, right? So like the way you mentioned regarding data modeling and all, the way you mentioned the templating structure and all those things, that has to be a part of it. And we can consider even the Sitecore content serialization or CLI per se part of it. With some advanced level later is a part of XM Cloud as well. So you can say, the content serialization falls into those 2 buckets. One being the basics, the usual things that we used to do. So let's try to just focus on the basics right now. From a basics standpoint, if we look at the XM Cloud certification, what all things like templates and stuff, what all things a person needs to be well versed with, and whether all that is covered in the learning paths or not.
So first one is of course data modeling. Now data modeling in a way that in the context of XM Cloud. So if you have good grip on XM Cloud templating, right, how it is defined. So here the tweak is it's not only about knowing the concept, but it's why it is important to do a hands-on, because there are questions also about the UI, how certain thing is configured where. Now that template inheritance, what it does, what is section, different things.
Correct.
But now one question saying, hey, where this is defined, then if you don't have the exact location, of course there are 4 options, but when in this kind of confusion, you will be like every option looks correct if you don't have hands-on. So with this basic concept also, they have tried to represent in such a way that it actually proves that okay, you have to have a certain level of hands-on and a skill set to pass.
in
But yeah, that's a basic. Data modeling is the one. Rendering and layouts. So concept of the layout remains same, right? So it's not something new to XM Cloud, but something with a headless or traditional Sitecore. Concept remains same. So all the question around it, I think those
So
comes under the basic bucket.
you touched a great point, because that is where I was coming. That if I am a headless developer, can I say those concepts of a headless developer from rendering and layout standpoint would remain exactly the same for XM Cloud certification as well, or are there any tweaks for that?
No, correct. It remains same. Majority of those remain same. So if you have a headless exposure, because XM Cloud is built on React Next.js, right? So it's just that it's on the cloud. The CM is on the cloud, right? It has some cloud CLI that you need to be well versed. But otherwise, from the concept perspective, it's same. There's no difference.
All right. Well, I think that covers kind of the basics of the exam. Second one being, I think, is the XM Cloud section of it, where the portal, the deploy app,
Correct.
and I think you
Pages.
mentioned admin API, pages, stuff like that is covered. So, what can a usual developer do? Like, let's talk of two type of developers. One developer who is currently working on Sitecore, so he knows the basics. Okay, he needs to probably go through some of the CLI sections of it in a little more detail to understand the concept, but then he or she has not worked on any XM Cloud solutions for now.
No.
So what all does that person need to do so that he can be confident enough to appear for a certification exam on XM Cloud?
So 80% of the stuff is there in documentation. Like if you are very thorough in your study, right? The first prerequisite is study well, prepare well. Then you are confident enough that you will get somewhere. You don't need to worry about it. The problem starts when there is a scenario-based question. That's the later part of the developer, which comes into the picture.
Okay.
Now, those questions can only be answered if you have some or little hands-on, or discussion in the project discussions. If you know how the architecture of the XM Cloud is, how the hosting is done, how the deployment is done, what is the rendering host. So if you know all these things, then I think that's the advanced part of it, where you will need to apply a lot of thinking to answer the questions.
All right. So if I look at portal and deploy app and everything, of course things are covered in documentation. I think the second part also is, I have also looked at the learning paths. I looked at both the learning paths, one for the .NET developers as well as for the headless developers, where I think things are explained, quite naturally for a basic developer to get started on it. Like I would say ice-breaking kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But what I really felt is, when you look at that particular documentation and when you go ahead and look at it from a standpoint of doing something in XM Cloud, I think it's a good beginner's journey. It gets you at, like, as an example, like a site tour.
Yeah.
Generally, if you go to a new site, you have a site tour.
Correct.
So it is a good from that perspective. But to know more details or know the exact working of it, you need to have hands-on.
Yeah, but you rightly said it is designed in such a way. So consider if you remove the XM Cloud part, right? So there is a headless development part of it.
Correct.
Now, when you do headless part, that's the documentation which you are referring to.
Yep.
You need to be, knowing the terminology. You need to be knowing what are the placeholders. The same placeholders are in XM Cloud.
Yep.
So you need to know how to restrict certain component to a placeholder, right?
True.
Need to host your app on Vercel, even if you don't have XM Cloud. So that's the headless path of a developer. Now that comes the XM Cloud. So now you have XM Cloud documentation with those 8 competency for the exam. So now you can connect the dots with your learning and what XM Cloud provides, and then this is just purely for the exam perspective. Of course, it's very broader than that, but yeah, you're right.
I think the third thing which I really put it is security and API and webhooks as kind of the advanced level for the advanced level for XM Cloud, I would say, wherein I think security is not just, so again this is based on what I have been learning right now and reading the documentation and all. When we talk of security and all the things with Sitecore, the first thing that comes in our mind is the security editor and a role editor and user and all those things. But I think with XM Cloud, we need to understand a little bit from a SaaS product standpoint,
Yeah.
right? So, would you like to, kind of shed more light on, the security standpoint of XM Cloud, the things which are essential to understand for not just a certification but also from working standpoint?
Sure. So you took a topic which was more difficult for me in the exam, but I'll still try to answer. Regarding XM Cloud, like access and roles and stuff, they are mainly like organization level role and the user level, app level role, right? An organization level role is where there are three categories: organization owner, organization admin, then you have organization user or a member. Member is anyone who is a member of your organization, right? Or a user. Owner is someone who has the subscription, maybe the full tenant of your so who has the license probably. And then owner can create different admins inside him, so they can create different user and stuff. So it's a pretty clear bifurcation that okay, user cannot manage admin cannot manage owner. It goes downwards. And then
approach.
Correct. And now admin can do a lot of duties, like they can invite people to the different apps, give different access rights to different apps and stuff. Now when you have done that, that's a app level access that you're giving. So that means that's the identity and access management part of XM Cloud on a high level, which is maybe similar like Okta and stuff. So you get certain access, like if you want to give access to a content hub to someone, you as an admin, you invite them, they need to sign in with their Okta or to sign up there, and then they get the access.
Right.
And then to grill down there, now if you talk about XM Cloud access, you get the access, and then from there onwards, the roles are again managed inside your XM Cloud
Sitecore instance.
Correct, Sitecore instance on a user level role. So some of them maybe because you also mentioned about the admin APIs and security and stuff. So to access certain APIs, you need certain roles.
Correct.
So if you, otherwise you will get a forbidden or something, like if you want to open the GraphQL editor or certain API, you need certain access to do that. So that is again managed inside Sitecore. So that's how it is bifurcated.
Right. So Daivagna, out of all these competencies, I mean, we have been talking about use cases and all those things. On a competency level, can you give us some examples of these, the questions and the options available in these competencies? And like was everything like difficult, or like were there like some easy, some mediocre, some use case difficult, or something like that? Any ideas?
Sure. Yep. So of course, I cannot give you the exact questions.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
But the first and very most important thing is in the XM Cloud documentation learning part, there are 10 questions at the end. Those 10 questions can decide your pass or fail result. Those are that important.
Right.
So do that, because it has questions from all the 10 competency in that, and it's pretty good.
So can we say it is pretty easy for our own self to gauge whether we'll be able to clear?
Absolutely.
Right. And I think, and does that study exam also give you from a competency level where you stood, or it's a general result that it gives?
No, it is based on like 15% of the architecture level questions,
right.
16 level of the API and webhook questions.
Right.
So it is divided like that.
It is divided similarly.
And the theme or the feel of the questions is like what is in the actual exam.
Okay.
Now coming to your second question, whether everything is hard or something easy or not, there are a lot of easy questions as easy as what is the purpose of this file, right? And if you see the option, but the question is very easy.
Yeah.
Answer is where option is where it makes it difficult, because you feel that okay, this is also it does this also, it does this also.
Correct.
And
so only if you have worked with it, if you know the crux of the matter, probably we will be able to understand and select the right answer there.
Right. So it's not that everything is difficult. There are like very easy questions as well, like 5, 10, 15 questions are like you don't need to think, you just go ahead and answer.
Click them and go.
Correct.
All right. Okay. I think a couple of them also asked me from community, how do I schedule an exam? I know things are given on the learning portal and all, but I think as a part of this podcast episode, let's go a little bit of in detail for that as well.
So it's a typical registration process where you go to Creton,
Criterion.
Criterion site. So
Yeah.
Criterion site and web accessor platform basically.
Yeah.
You go there, register yourself, and just pick a slot and give the exam. That's like any other Sitecore exam. And if you're an MVP, first attempt is free. So that's a added advantage. If you're an MVP, you get a free attempt. If you pass, your exam is free. So there is no burden on your organization for that part also. But yeah, it's the same standard process for the registration.
Yeah. Well, I believe so. It's pretty standard, and of course, it is like online proctored, or you can go to us.
Correct. Similar Sitecore
Everything
exam.
same.
Correct.
Everything
All
same.
the rules applies in the same fashion.
And probably if you're a partner, you might be given some coupon which you can utilize. And I think one thing which I remember is during December there were I think 3 or 4 sessions, specifically kind of crash course sessions available from Sitecore team, wherein they were giving out 50% discount. So if you already have it, great. If you don't, probably you miss the bus. But I think good to look out for probably something more coming up in the new year as well, in January, related to that.
And in the Sitecore channel, like XM Cloud channel, there are discussion happening about. I attended the course, but I did not get the coupon or something. So there is a standard process. You can email them and then get on a call, get in touch with them to get the 50% discount coupon. I'm not sure if it's available for all, but it's good to check out with them.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. Daivagna, lastly, what is the one takeaway that you would give to the community as far as not just from a certification standpoint, but more so from an XM Cloud standpoint?
Well, for certification, I would say prepare well. I think that's the most important. The documentation that we are going to put in the link, you prepare from that, and then I think everything will cover there. Second thing is, don't forget to mark your question for the review and select the best possible option, because if you run out of time, then your best option will get selected. But if you mark them in a review, you will be able to review them later. Personally, in my case, what happened was there were 15 plus questions in the review, and then I was running out of time. But luckily, with the calm head, I kind of reviewed them all, and I also corrected some couple of options, and then maybe it decided my passing or failure. So I think that's most important. 2 aspects of it. Otherwise, there are good community documentation videos out there. Go through them. You can contact me, him anytime on our email or Slack or anything. Would be happy to help. But yeah, all the best. It's just a typical Sitecore exam, nothing else. Just prepare well. And the last is get yourself familiarized with the XM Cloud interface, because there are some questions about, as I said, some specific location as well. If some option is lying under some menus, then you need to know, right? Because otherwise it will decide your pass or failure. So it's good to have yourself against your hand dirty on the XM Cloud. So I think that's it.
Sure. I think 3 things from my side. Number 1, don't prepare for the exam. Rather, try understanding the basics. When your basics are clear, I think everything else will fall in place. Okay. Number 2, getting certified versus gaining knowledge. I think what we should focus on more is gaining the knowledge, because when we have the knowledge, I think all the use cases and everything will fall in place and we'll be able to clear it pretty well. So don't be in a haste of giving an examination or the certification to get XM Cloud certified per se, but rather focus on gaining the knowledge of XM Cloud, and probably certification will follow. And third, and the most important thing which I feel is, failure is not a crime. So if
Correct.
you're unable to clear the exam in the first go, and if you require a second attempt, so be it. Nothing to worry about. It is all okay to receive a failure. It just says if we need to prepare a little better.
Yeah.
So I
it's
think
part and parcel
I
of
think
it.
that is one of the things where some of the community members also connected with me and say, oh, you know what, I could not clear the exam, and that is okay.
That's
I mean,
fine.
nothing wrong in getting a
Yeah.
failure. Even I've been in the last decade, I have given a number of Microsoft exams, and I could not clear one or two of them, and that was absolutely okay. Well, I just prepared a little
Well, and appear
better,
correct.
because then it opened my mind to something that, oh, you know what, probably I'm not clear in the concept.
Yeah.
So that are the three key takeaways that I have, not just for XM Cloud certification per
For
se,
everything. Yeah.
but for overall concept learning and understanding. Well, Daivagna, thank you so much for your time
My pleasure.
and getting with us on this episode and helping out me as well as the community for
Thank you.
your experience on XM Cloud certification.
Surely.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for looking at the episode with all the patience. I hope it added value in a way that you can now appear confidently for the XM Cloud certification. At the same time, here at Sitecore Tech Talks, what we have now decided is from this year, we are going to have 2 episodes at the minimum in a given month, which means every 15 days we are planning to launch 1 episode of Sitecore Tech Talks. If you are interested in appearing on Sitecore Tech Talks and sharing your knowledge with the community, feel free to reach out to either me or Alok on LinkedIn, and we'll try figuring it out how we can communicate together. Please make sure it's not just about appearing on a podcast, it is more about sharing the knowledge with the community. So it is quite possible that after we record the episode, if we feel it is not adding more value or good value to the community, it might not be utilized, but at the same time we will be informed about it. Thank you so much.